Just realized I wasn't on the screen. Hello, everyone. Jess Claire here. Coming to you on the Jess Claire Show on Curious, live only into Raw, Real and Amplify TV. I'm only going live with the show here now. So if you are jumping on, I would love to hear from you. Let me just bring you guys up. And please, hello. Oh, yes. Oh, let me tell you, Hayley. Oh, my gosh. Let me tell you. Do I have a topic for you tonight? I've been studying this because I love this stuff. Oh, my gosh. Oh, there I am again. If you are jumping on, hello, Marilyn. Hello, Hayley. Let me ask you this question because I'm really curious about this. What is the difference for you between submitting, sacrificing, and giving up on what's important to you versus surrender? What's the difference? I want to get these things very, very distinct. I talk about coming from surrender and love. In fact, I think I'm currently in the space of creating a new boundary called I will only communicate from that place now. So I'd be very interested to see if you are jumping on, what it is for you and really, really dig into what this thing called compromise is. So let me get into that. Okay. Where do I begin? I want to start by telling you about what I've read about compromise today. So, hello, Briar. I get that. I think I got it right. Hey, Taya. Submission is giving consent to having something done to you. Yep. Surrender is allowing energy to flow and begin with it. Okay, that's one way of seeing it. Surrender means I value my sanity more than the pain of being right or needing to have another person meet my needs. That's kind of where I came to as well. One of the things, I'm really interested in relationships, right? And, for most of you, you may or may not have know this, but I took on being single for a year. Yes. Briar. I took on being single for a year. And so I got to explore, this kind of relationship I had with being single. And this is probably a bad example. Let me try something else. I'm like trying not to talk about relationships right now. Oh, let me just go there. Fuck it. So I took on being single for a year, and then I met someone, I really liked them, and then I broke my word and said, I'm not going to be single anymore, and I'm going to be with this person. Anyway, it didn't work out, and so we're not together anymore, and I'm single again, right? So I looked at that and I was talking to my housemate today and I'm like, did I just submit? Is that what I did? Or what did I do? Like, was that a compromise? And, I don't know. I don't know about this thing called compromise. I'm like, I think people seem to think this is a good thing, right? I had a look and there's different definitions of it. Of course, I did. I'm going to share my screen. Welcome to the Singles Club. Oh, I've been here for a while and there's a reason for it. So here we go. Compromise is a settlement of differences by mutual concessions. So it actually is like by mutual concessions, an agreement reached by adjustment of conflicting or opposing claims, principles, reciprocal modification of demands. So we're all modifying everything here, right? And we're the concession, and a concession is, conceding or yielding a right or a privilege or a point in an argument, all right? And then it's like I go on to find that 𝙂𝙀𝙏 here has actually giving us some, 12 secrets in reaching compromise in a relationship. Of one is take the long view, put on the other person's pair of shoes, third place wins, yoga. And then money, love language, calendar clashes, and sexy time. I was like, oh, this is very interesting, right? This is interesting. But ultimately what it came down to was sort of encouraging people to compromise on mostly everything except the things that are important to you and your boundaries on how you're treated and what you want and things like that. So I got very interested in this, and I'd be interested to see, like, what is the last thing you compromised on and what happened directly after that? Exactly right. If you just did yoga, maybe your relationships will work out, Marilyn. That was listening for me too. Because one of the things I noticed was that the moment that I compromised on something that was important to me, like being single for a year, I actually experienced myself as like failing. And so I wondered if maybe this idea of compromise like brings up some failure. And then I was like, well, what's the difference between surrender and submission and compromise? Like how do we get these things distinct, right? Because everything I can see in the definition of compromise is where you actually give up on some things that are important to you. So I'd be interested in what you think about that. What is the last thing that you compromised on, and what was it like for you when you did that? How do you know it was aligned, or how did you not know it was aligned? I'm sorry, I've got something in my tooth. It's really annoying me. Okay, let's have a look. So I'm going to go back in here and have a look at, this compromise stuff, and then have a look at this thing called surrender. This was a much nicer word. It wasn't aligned. What makes you say that, Jen? Surrender. To give up. To give up to some influence, coarse emotion. To give up as to the police. To yield something to the possession or power of another. Under duress or demand. This is so interesting. And here I am thinking surrender's a better thing, right? It wasn't a line, and I did it just to keep the peace. Now, what's the real impact of that? How do you feel about that? What's that like for you? Just like what Haley said before, right? Surrender means I value my sanity more than the pain of being right or needing to have another person meet my needs. And there's something that I like more about surrender than I do about compromise. I'd be interested to see what word aligns with you more. I'm fine as in love, you do things. Okay. What is it that you do in love? I'm really grappling with this. I don't surrender very often. And I don't compromise very often. And I kind of agree with you, Briar. You shouldn't have to change for anyone who really cares about you unless you're doing some really bad shit. And I agree. Whether there's hurt, like physical violence, disrespect, no. But in saying that, maybe go over compromise again. And maybe I'm stuck here, right? Because I once did this course which talked about compromise actually not being a great thing at all. And the definition of compromise was that it sounded a bit more like surrender. But firstly, how do you even establish whether you're going to surrender or compromise if you're not clear on your boundaries? And if you're just doing something to please someone, what's the real impact of coming from just trying to please someone? In love, I do things. I'm so curious about that, Jennifer. What is it that we're actually trying to accomplish when we're in a relationship that allows us to say that compromise or surrender is okay? Communication is key, but let's have a look at this, right? I'm going to give you a scenario. Hello, Juliana. I'm going to give you a scenario. I gave my word to being single. Sorry, I've got something in my tooth. I gave my word to being single. I broke that word. The moment after I broke it, it wasn't what I really wanted. Right? So was that compromise? Or was, when I really, really looked at it, I created that for a reason. Well, the love I believe in is to do, give, and take. Meet them where they're at, no boundaries, really. Right. What's that like for you, Jen? If that empowers you, great. I think for me, here's what I discovered. My word means everything to me. Really what I've distinguished for myself is who I am is really a product of what I say and what I say I'm going to do and what I don't do, right? So if that's the case and I say I'm going to be single and then I don't do that, doesn't that undermine who I am for myself? And so therefore, if I have a boundary and I go, this is what I'm going to do, or I say, this is who I am, and I say, this is what's happening, and then, I then go back on that and compromise that, what is really going to happen in the relationship? It's an amazing feeling as it has a soulmate connection. Yeah, it is an amazing feeling being in love. That's beautiful. I really, really do get it. But what is it like for you? I guess yes, Jess. However, do you like living in a cage? Say more about that. I'm very curious about what you mean by living in a cage. Because I found this interesting today. When I looked at what a boundary is not living in a cage at all. A boundary is actually put in place so that you can be more free to express yourself. So yeah, I'm curious. So maybe is it that having boundaries and creating word and saying this is who I am, is it that that feels like living in a cage? It's an amazing feeling. I love it. That's beautiful. Great. Well, suppose you're not compromising anything then. You're living fully expressed. There was no real compromise. I think that's great. So what is living in a cage? There's a real delay on these comments tonight. I don't see having boundaries as being freer. That's fine. Fully expressed. Look, if you don't have boundaries and you're fully expressed in that, that's great. And look, we can explore what boundaries are and what they're not. What did I say about that? So having boundaries that you cannot compromise or surrender. What's the point of having a boundary if you compromise or surrender to it? That's curious. I'm curious about this, okay? You know, I'm happy to use myself as a scapegoat here because I do create boundaries for myself and I do stick to them. And look, I'm looking at this. I know that I am pretty headstrong. I know maybe you just don't like the word boundary. Let's have a look at it, right? Because as far as I can tell, boundaries are meant to be in place to give you freedom. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I grew up in, I grew up, and this is the Jen and Jess. So I grew up and I was around a lot of boys. I experienced physical violence. It was kind of normal back then. I even had it at school. It was quite big, right? So I noticed that when I was a teenager, that I used to react quite heavily to certain things, and I would, even in my adult life now, if I'm with someone that's like, do this, do things my way, and I sort of come back with, no, you'll do it my way, and then at some point I react, and then I've noticed that we kind of get into what I call this argy-bargy and lock horns, and then it's like, some sort of argument. I just noticed at some point that that was pointless. And so I created this boundary for myself that when I notice that that's all happening, I literally take myself away and step away, and I don't come back until there's like what I call this surrender to love. So I've actually got surrender and love collapsed. But what I got is that in this definition, surrender is giving over power. But I suppose if I call it surrender to love, I'm giving over my power to love. And it's only in those conditions that I'll come back and have a conversation. And I don't compromise that because it works. Now, when I originally created being single, I created it being single because I had a history of having relationships that was just not okay. That didn't work. That didn't light me up, that didn't empower my business, that didn't empower me. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I didn't know why. And lo and behold, I have another one and it didn't work. So things don't work. Whereas having a boundary, I was like, what if I actually kept my word around that? What if I actually did? Maybe I would have discovered something about myself that I'm now yet to discover. I don't know. I'm curious. Whereas when we compromise things, we're going back into old patterns of behavior. I don't know. I'm just curious. And that boundaries are actually really important because boundaries create new opportunities that don't exist inside of relationships. Whereas before, without boundaries, they create and repeat old patterns of behavior. So do you think you're carrying things from the past to rely on boundaries? I don't know. What do you, I don't really understand what you mean. I'm sure I am. This is now the Jen and Jess show. I have not got this any more distinct for myself at all. I'm curious and only one person's engaging with me. So yeah, it is the Jen and Jess show. I'm like, what is a boundary versus, no, not boundary. What is compromise versus surrender? Why do we even need boundaries? Why are we people pleasing? What are we doing here? This seemed all clear in my head, but it's so not. So what do you think? It's a very, very, very slow delay here. Hey, Jess Palmer. I'm noticing I'm like teetering on a conversation that I don't think I should be having. That's probably what's constraining me right now. People pleasing is a judgment. Well, it's interesting. You just said take a breath. Oh. Hey, Courtney. Hey, Courtney. Welcome. I guess my intention here is that you get really curious about your own boundaries. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm like, what is it that's constraining me right now? I'm like, here's what I'm not saying. I seem different to people. I can even hear it in what you're saying, Jen. And I get that for some people, living in flow and living from flow is, and I think this is possibly what is being collapsed, right? Is that we think that living in flow means having no boundaries. And what I'm saying is that your version of flow, Jen, my version of flow, Courtney's version, Jess's version, whoever else is watching's version of flow is actually completely in relationship to their boundaries. And that no one has the same type of flow. And here's what I really got. Me being my word, and my word is so important to me. It's so important to me. Communication is so important to me. Commitment is so important to me. Honesty is so important to me. Ownership is so important to me. All those things are so important to me. In fact, for me to live in the kind of flow that I really want is to ensure that I create boundaries and agreements for myself that empower me to live in that flow. And what I notice is that sometimes I get talked out of my own boundaries, and I'm calling that. I'm calling that actually manipulation. Trying to convince someone out of their own boundaries and influence them out of their own boundaries is actually manipulation. And so I'm reflecting on what's important to me. And I'm really clear that my word and my boundaries are really important. And I'm really clear, Jen, that yours are not the same as mine. Right? Yeah, I did take the action. I submitted and I surrendered. But what am I trying to say? I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'd be curious what you just, out of everything, I'd be very curious about whether you can see that's like, trying to convince someone out of their own boundaries, or because we're different in the way that we see things and how we deal with situations, does that mean that we should be trying to convince someone else out of the way they do it? I'm very curious about this, because isn't that more in line with like why would we do that? Do you know your own boundaries? Because I feel I'm really clear about mine, but in being clear about mine, I seem to, and I'd be curious to see if this is actually the case, Jen, but I seem to attract comments like a lot of rules and regulations. But isn't it really about what empowers me? That was a sign. It was a sign, Jen. Who gets to say what your boundaries are? Can we actually convince others of anything? You absolutely can. You know how influential we are? Do you get your own power? I like when people say that. Can you actually convince others of anything? When you look in the world, what do we have in our homes? We have stuff in our homes. We're convinced of a lot of things and influenced into a lot of things. Are we aware of the influence of others and our own influences? And are we aware of what we influence others? Because you feel like you're holding back. It's not that I'm holding back. I'm actually grappling with this myself. And I'm like, what am I trying to say here that I'm not saying? I think I'm saying, and maybe this is part of it. I think what I'm saying is I broke my word and I proved to myself why I don't. And I'm reflecting on the impact. Described as a And this is interesting. I notice how much people want me to let go of the structure and let go of the control. And I know, Chloe, I think it's great. You're not the only one. But this is what I mean, right? What if this is what actually gives me freedom? What is it that people, what is it about word that people, or just not word, but what is it about boundaries and actually having like, this is who I am and this is what I stand for? And like, what is it about not continuing to honor that? I mean, if it didn't work for me anymore, I wouldn't do it. And yes, I am sad. You know, whoever, Marilyn. Yeah, I'm sad. Very, 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 very. And maybe it is my sadness talking. I don't know. Do you not love and learn, or are you strongly restricted? I love that you're talking about plates. I don't know, Jen. I might look at that. I don't really know where I'm going with this. And I'm even noticing there's no direction or intention in what I'm saying. And it seems so clear. And then I open my mouth. I don't know. But in my world, this seems really... No, I love it. You don't have to apologize for that. Jeez, I wouldn't. What else is going on? This is so good. You guys are like, what's going on with you? That is a good question. What's going on with me is no intention. It is unlike me. I actually wrote down an intention. The intention was to empower people to explore their own boundaries. And I'm sure I will fulfill on it. Somehow cosmically, I always do. But it's very interesting. I don't know if there's anything else for me to say except what else is going on. Here's what's really, really going on is I'm really stuck. And maybe it's not appropriate to deal with this in a Facebook Live. That's what's really going on. I was like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm halfway stuck. This is actually what I'm really exploring at the moment. And I don't want this to be a criticism of anyone who's exploring this. I just want you to know I'm not saying I'm right or I'm wrong. You know, but sometimes I think because of my real stand for word and like who I am is my word, and I really only say yes to the things I say yes to, and I say no to the things that I say no to. And something for me as big as like saying I'm going to be single and then not doing it is massive. And sometimes I think that I live in this world where I'm almost I'm almost encouraged to break my word, when to me it feels as though it's so important to me. I want people around me that will encourage me to not. I think that's my frustration. It's like, this doesn't seem right. It seems like, and I could be wrong, and I really am interested, because it's not as if I'm going in the attack on you guys. It's not. I'm just curious about this, right? It's like, it just seems as though people around me want me not to do what I'm saying is really important to me. They want me to break my word. They want me to go into what they call flow. They want me to not do this stuff, when I can see this is key to me. Maybe I'm wrong. But when I say surrendering to love, what I mean is I surrender to, and I come from this loving space of curiosity. Like, I don't know. I'm actually saying I'm in a place where I don't know. How stuck? Thanks, Chloe. Maybe this is exactly where you need to bring it. Who knows? But one thing I'm sure of is that I've done a lot of looking, and I always ask myself, who am I? And this will probably answer your question too, Chloe. Who am I? Who is this Jess I speak of? Who am I? And from all the looking, am I this, I'm just on here. I'm just challenging all my stuff with this, right? Who am I? At some point I thought that I was this person that was really strong-willed and pig-headed and this and that. And then I was like, no, these are just ways I created to survive particular things that happened in my past. And then I was able to give them up. And then I was like, so who am I now? And I create all these, like, am I now? It's very, philosophical, but I've done a lot of looking. And here's what I came back to. I'm who I say I am. And I get to say who I am in every moment, and that, changes. But ultimately, what I'm used by is that who I am is shifting what it is to be a leader on this planet. And, part of what I grapple with is that what I see, and what I'm talking to here, Chloe, is that what comes out of my mouth is matched in my actions. It's not just like an option. It's like, no, this is really happening. And yet what I find around me is that a lot of people are trying to convince me out of this. And I'm like, why would they do that? And I'm curious about that. So I kind of feel like, I'm just human, right? I'm no different to anyone else, but I kind of feel like I'm just this one person that sees something and no one else sees it. Like, if I say that I'm going to be single for a year, like, I'd be single for a year, and I honor that. And then I don't just say I'm going to be single for a year. I actually connect to the why behind why I was going to be single for a year. Do you know why I was going to be single for a year? I was going to be single for a year because I have now, for the last 2.5 years, or even longer than that, had a 13-year relationship. And then every relationship after that has actually seen a pattern. And it's not been what I want. And I don't know what it is. Oh God, now I'm just going to get really raw with you. In this year, I was out to discover my own intimacy with myself, with who I am, and stay single because I could do that on my own, and it was going to really empower me because I was so committed to never having those relationships ever again. And I met someone and I fell in love. And I broke that word. But it didn't work. And it was no big deal. I mean, it was no big deal. It didn't work. But what I came back to was, why would I break my word? And why is everyone around me pulling for me to like not honor it? I don't get it. Why isn't everyone going, this is really important to Jess? So we should be like, yeah, well, Jess wants to keep her word. Well, why aren't you keeping your word? Yeah, possibly. I don't get it. I'm not saying, and this isn't me criticizing any of you guys. I'm just curious as to why. Thank you, Carly. As you are human, what does it mean to be human? And look, I'm curious to discover more about this, right? So I feel like I've just done a therapy session on myself with you guys. It's so weird. I feel like I'm trying to prove that I don't have to have boundaries and I can get what I want. And I don't have to, honor my word and I can get what I want. And I don't need to do anything and get what I want. But time and time again, I'm reminded that what I say when it's not honored, it doesn't work for me. I do have urges. It's interesting you say that, Jen, because I don't go on love. Love is not enough. Anytime I followed my heart into love, I deeply love humans. I could fall in love with every single one of you on this live, like soul level fall in love. And at some level I am. It doesn't work for me to go into relationships like that. It works for me to work on word. I'm deeply in love with all human beings. I could actually talk to anyone about anything under any circumstances. People that you would hate that have done atrocities, I can have compassion and love for and fall in love with. It is not something that works for me. So love is not enough. And so that's why I created these boundaries for myself. Because it does give me freedom. Exactly, Jen. I don't get freedom from being someone that I know is that deeply in love with people. It is my word that is my safety. Because I know what I really deeply want. This got very deep. Control of others? No, I'm definitely not controlling anyone else. I'm doing a very bad job of that. If I was even trying. This has been the weirdest live ever. I feel so exposed, like you've seen into my soul in a different way. Anyway, I'm all about real, raw. It's like a Jess therapy session. It's great. Thanks, guys. Any other questions? Oh, God. I'm feeling exposed. I don't experience that very often. That's interesting. Well, if there's no more questions, I might just, or comments, I might just end it on there. And Chloe, the problem is the ego and intellectual side of human beings getting into the way. Yeah, I understand. And maybe there is some of that there that I've just not distinguished, right? I remember one, I've done a few courses, and one of the things is integrity, right? Integrity being the life is chaotic. And even in this conversation, right, I'm just noticing how much I'm uncomfortable and being in the uncertainty. I want certainty. I want certainty that I'm going to be with someone and it's going to work out. And I can't. I want certainty. Don't we all? We all want this certainty, safety, and boundaries provides us some level of certainty, right? And when we say, I'm not going to tolerate this, and we say, you do this again, I'm not going to tolerate this. And when we create these things in language and we create these boundaries, we form a level of integrity for ourselves. And I really do believe that. And what is interesting is that through all the mess and through all the uncertainty and through no guarantees and through this kind of messy little place that we call life, one of the things I really am clear about is what I always bring back to get grounded is, what did I say? What was my word? And when I come back there, it always provides me that sense of what does it provide me with? I'm just trying to think. It's like being grounded. It gives me clarity. When things don't work, it takes away the mystery for me. So that's probably all there is for me to share. But it's like, why don't things work? I broke my word. Without integrity, nothing works. Anyway, that's what I keep coming back to. And I keep trying to prove it wrong. But anyway, and honoring and having integrity to what is my word, and always continuing to reassess what it is and what it isn't as well. I mean, I'm not going to be making promises and words on things that I do not want to keep. That's why I'm reassessing my whole business right now about what I'm going to do, because, I've done a few things and they haven't worked for me. So I don't want to kill myself in my own business. I want to have an amazing time. So I don't want to do things I don't want to do. I'm concerned this is probably the weirdest live that's ever been on the face of the earth, but here we are. Thanks, Jen. Maybe it's okay. Just maybe it's okay to say, Jen, that I didn't have integrity. I'm glad I took a risk. And yes, I'm disappointed it didn't happen, but it's actually okay to acknowledge that what I did had no integrity. Maybe that's all there is for me to acknowledge. It's all that I really want to acknowledge. Weird is good, I'm glad. Maybe that's it. That's all. For me, it had no integrity. For others, it would have been fine. But I said I was not going to do it, and I did it. And that matters to me. That's all. And would I have done it any different? Maybe no. I'm glad I did it. I had a great time. I was an amazing human. I had an amazing experience. It just didn't work. I wouldn't say there was no integrity. The no integrity comes, Jen, and this is what I mean, is that I said me that I was going to be single for all of 2020. Oh, no, I'm not trying to beat myself up. I'm actually trying to get something distinct. It's not beating myself up, okay? Or maybe I am. Maybe that's part of the problem. You know, I'm not, okay? I'm not doing this. I'm just noticing. Anyway. I broke my word. Thank you. We can just acknowledge that now. That's, I mean, like everyone. You sound like, I know. I'm like so curious always about how to have these conversations without it making it sound like a beat up. I know I'm not beating myself up. You know when I'm beating myself up. It's just noticing. Anyway, I think I've said enough. We've almost talked an hour into what has been Jess's therapy session. I don't even know if I'm going to leave this on raw. This is so bad. That is a good question, Chloe. That really is. Maybe I am beating myself up. You know, to leave this? This is like the most pathetic live I've ever done. I feel like this is terrible. So for those who've tuned in, #replay, #Jess Claire Therapy. I hope you have enjoyed the show. And you have seen a full, like, I'm just like confused AF. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm trying to, I don't even know what we've accomplished tonight. And together I have gotten, okay, I'm just going to stop. All right. I'm just going to stop. I think it's great. Okay, good. This is what I look like 7 days out of a breakup. Okay. This is what it looks like. And I'm just like really challenged. Ooh, my hair just went all funny. Anyway, I fell in love. I got my heart broken. I broke my word. It didn't work out. That was very, very sad. There is nothing else to do with that except to notice that I broke my word. That is all. And yes, after all of that, I want you guys to stand for my word. Okay? That's what I want. When you hear me break my word, just be like, really, Jess? You really think this is working for me? Not be like, yeah, break it, do that thing, go and do it. Okay, that's what I'm getting at, I guess. So you're cheap, Mary. I charge $500 an hour. If I were you, I'd put up your price. So on that note, what's my word now, Nikita? That's a very good question. I'm really, really looking at that. I'm not giving my word. No, it's not about how I feel. It's not about if I'm happy or not. Listen to what I say. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. I honor my word. I break my word sometimes, but I honor my word. And I'm looking at how I'm going to honor my word around this, Nikita. So I'm not going to give my word to or re-promise anything right now. Currently, I'm just acknowledging. And I'm really looking at it. And I'm doing an amazing course in 3 weeks, 5-day retreat. And I'm going to really re-look at the things then. Okay, it's $500 it is. Oh, you crack me up, girl. All right. So on that note, this is so funny. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to tell my VA and do not put this on YouTube. It's terrible. Thank you so much for tuning in to what seems like the Jess Claire therapy session following a breakup. Absolutely. I thought it was all, it wasn't. I didn't even think it was. It was. And I appreciate you tuning in and really being in this conversation with me. You know, I am about to have a drink, let me tell you. And I'm writing, yes, put it on YouTube, fuck. I'm writing my comedy script tonight because I'm about to do stand-up comedy, which is even fucking, you know, just so I thought I couldn't challenge myself anymore. Just clash. Just clash. Oh, all right. Now you've seen me just this way. All right, I feel all right. I'll let you know of my stand-up comedy. If you're in Brisbane, you can come and see me. And we'll be putting it hopefully up as well. So you guys have an amazing night. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you all again next week on Raw. Just kidding. I'm not running for Prime Minister, let me tell you. Could you imagine I've been eaten alive as Prime Minister? I'll be a mentor to someone who is, teach them how to be raw and real. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Marilyn. Thanks, Courtney, if you're still here. Nikita. Anyone else who's jumped on that I haven't got there, you know, thank you for being on. See you on comedy and have yourself a great night. See you guys. See you, Holly.